Dr. Quinn, you're muted.
Good evening, Dallas ISD community, and welcome to our district's very first webinar conversation to discuss using cultural intelligence to create an anti-racist school community. The webinar that you're about to witness will be the first of a series of conversations to keep the Dallas ISD community informed about the work that is being done to address racial equity in our district. This is a work that our Board of Trustees initiated to demonstrate their commitment to eliminating systematic and systemic disparities that adversely affect our African American and English language learners. Our board was instrumental in creating policy and resolutions that emphasize the importance and expectation of racial, socioeconomic, and educational equity across our district. Board President Justin Henry is here tonight to share some brief comments from a trustee's perspective. Trustee Henry?
Thank you, Dr. Quinn, and I also want to thank everyone else who's on the call. So Dr. Lear, who's our Chief of Staff and Racial Equity, and Dr. Upton, who's working closely with the administration. Saw nearly all the chiefs. So I really appreciate the administration taking this call to action seriously and bringing folks together over a long period of time. I also want to thank the administration, including Superintendent Hinojosa, for his leadership in this regard, including forcing some of these chiefs on this call to include racial equity as part of their goals in the chiefs. I also want to thank the Board of Trustees and send greetings on behalf of the Board of Trustees, who has unanimously supported the idea and pursuit of racial equity. We understand it's a process. I'm not sure if we'll ever get to the destination, but we're going to courageously move and do what we can to address the many racial inequities that we see in our system. And last, I just want to thank the community, those of you that are on the call, those of you that aren't on the call, the communities that you work, serve, and live in that have been advocating for racial equity for years and years, far beyond even before I was on the Board of Trustees and many of my colleagues on the Board of Trustees. So thank you for community for also supporting and helping us drive this mission. We'll end that there and pass it back to Dr. Quinn, I believe.
Yes, thank you, President Henry, and thank you to all of the Board of Trustees for your vision and for your leadership. And now, more than ever, it is imperative that we all work together to right the wrongs of the past by addressing and changing behaviors of exclusion and inequity. To this end, Dallas ISD has partnered with the Cultural Intelligence Center, and we're using their CQ model to assist us with developing an anti-racist school community. Our facilitator for this evening is none other than Dr. Sandra Upton. She is the Vice President of Global Diversity Practice with the Cultural Intelligence Center, and she is responsible for providing leadership and expertise on diversity, equity, and inclusion matters for clients across the globe. Dr. Upton has over 25 years of experience training and consulting with businesses, educational institutions, governmental agencies, and nonprofits. She has led the Cultural Intelligence Center's response for the growing demand for global companies such as Starbucks, Facebook, Google, Goldman Sachs, McDonald's, and Hallmark. Her work extends to higher learning institutions such as Harvard University, London School of Economics, Stanford University, Cornell University, and Columbia University. Dr. Upton has also led the center's diversity, equity, and inclusion work in school systems like Boston Public Schools, Forest Hills Public Schools, Kent ISD, Irving ISD, and of course, our very own Dallas ISD. Dr. Upton serves as the unconscious bias expert for the Cultural Intelligence Center, and she leads their certification programs across the globe. She travels frequently and has facilitated keynotes and trainings in countries such as Brazil, China, Indonesia, Israel, Singapore, South Africa, and several countries throughout Europe. She and her husband, Robert, are the proud parents of two awesome college-aged children, Alexis and Devin. Dallas community, please join me in welcoming the most amazing and world-renowned Dr. Sandra Upton.
Who is that woman?
That's
Thank you so
you.
much. Thank you so much, Dr. Quinn, for that very gracious introduction. And thank you to all of the chiefs and all of the leadership, the board, for your major commitment to this work. The Cultural Intelligence Center really is very grateful and excited about our work with you. This is not a new relationship. We've been working with the district for about 2 years now, but it's been exciting these last couple of months because things have really ramped up and the commitment has gone deep and wide. And I'm very excited and optimistic about the results that we can expect to see in the coming months and years. So I am looking forward to facilitating some conversation tonight about the why and the how, as it relates to how do we move the district towards becoming a more anti-racist school community and a more culturally intelligent school community. So I'm just going to start out by just taking a few moments and giving you a high-level understanding of what do we mean by cultural intelligence and what that relationship is. And then what is going to be most significant in our conversation tonight is for you to hear directly from the chiefs and them share their perspective on this topic. And then more importantly, the work that they're going to be doing to help lead the work. So I want to go back a bit to just remind everyone of the serious commitment that the district has made to this work. You know, there has been a very clear, explicit public acknowledgement of the inequities that are part of the district, that are part of our communities, and that are really part of our nation. And it's been really exciting to see the district really step up and make a pretty bold statement and resolution. So back in 2017, some of you may be aware that the district made a proclamation and a resolution. And at that time, not only was there a serious commitment, a renewed commitment made to address inequity in the district, but there was real money and effort put behind the commitment. So that's when the Racial Equity Office was established. And that was huge because it then demonstrated that it was willing to create resources and manpower and human capital to make this work happen. And then fast forward, even 3 years later, here in 2020, the board once again made another serious commitment to this work, and in particular, recognizing that inequities can happen at many different levels and across different culture groups, but there is a sense of urgency as it relates to addressing the inequities that have been placed upon our students of color, and in particular African-American students. And so understanding this commitment and this work, we are excited to come alongside the district to help to close the gaps. So in terms of what we want to accomplish this evening, there are really 3 goals. And I stated them a little bit a moment ago, but more specifically, we really want to deepen your understanding of how the district is addressing racial equity, okay? And then secondly, again, I'm going to spend a few moments talking about how cultural intelligence is a strategy for helping to address racial equity and creating an anti-racist school community. And then you're going to hear directly from the chiefs related to their work on this. So what do we mean by cultural intelligence? Simply put, cultural intelligence, or CQ for short, because it is a form of intelligence, it's the capability to function and relate effectively in culturally diverse situations. One of the things that's really important to understand about cultural intelligence is that it goes beyond just developing people's awareness or sensitivity to cultural differences or cultural challenges. I can be sensitive and I can be aware all day long, but neither of those guarantee that I'm going to be effective in my interactions across cultures. And so when we talk about cultural intelligence, we're talking about a capability, a skill that is needed for teachers and for staff and for leaders and ultimately for students if we are going to work effectively across cultures and work to reduce inequities. So why cultural intelligence at Dallas? Again, the bigger picture goal is to reduce inequities and very specifically focusing on the African-American student and also enhance student engagement. So you can see on the screen here, and I'm going to go through this quite quickly, you can see that there's several reasons why the cultural intelligence framework is appropriate for the work that Dallas has embarked upon as it relates to equity. First of all, it's a research-based approach, and I could spend the entire evening just talking about the rigorous and robust research behind the CQ framework and model. It is a form of intelligence. The work is in the diversity and inclusion and equity space, but the research actually comes out of the intelligence research. And so we're able to measure a teacher or a staff members or leaders. We're able to measure their cultural intelligence. And more importantly, we know that cultural intelligence predicts your ability to teach, to lead, to work effectively across cultures. And given the tremendous diversity of students that Dallas ISD serves and the large population of African American students that Dallas ISD serves, teachers need the skills to understand the cultural differences and to be able to adapt their teaching style to those differences and needs. So it's a research-based approach. It focuses on skills, so we can develop the skills of teachers, staff, and administrators. Again, we know that it measures and predicts your ability to work effectively across cultures. And we know that the more we develop those skills, and we also at the same time are looking at systems and policies and practices, both of those things at the same time are what will help us to reduce these inequities and move the district towards becoming an anti-racist school community. The other really exciting thing about cultural intelligence is that while it is a form of intelligence, it is malleable, meaning it can be improved. So part of the process that we're going through in terms of training teachers and staff and leaders, it's allowing us to assess where they are, but also help them develop plans for how they can grow and move forward. I thought it was also helpful to give some working definitions. You know, we oftentimes will throw around words like racism and systemic racism and anti-racism. What do we really mean by that? And so I wanted to very quickly highlight some definitions so that you are clear on what we mean. So we talked about what cultural intelligence is, but more specifically, what does that mean for Dallas, right? So it's all about building the capability, the skills for Dallas ISD administrators, teachers, and staff to effectively lead, teach, and serve a diverse population of students and families, particularly African American students and other underrepresented groups. What do we mean when we say racism, right? It is simply an underlying belief in the superiority of one race over another and its right to dominate. There's a difference between racism and prejudice. I can be prejudiced, but if I don't have the power or control, it's difficult for me to be racist, right? So it's this marriage of being prejudiced and power, and then being prejudiced and having power. So what do we mean by systemic racism, right? It's those systems and structures that have procedures and processes that disadvantage African Americans and other underrepresented races. What does an anti-racist look like? And that is what we're trying to move the district towards. And again, we're looking at this both at the individual and systems level. So how do we help people become anti-racist? Well, we have to first understand what we mean by that. So it's someone who takes intentional action to oppose racism, which we just defined, and racist systems and structures. Is that simple, right? So we're going to equip teachers, staff, and administration to take intentional action and to understand what those actions need to be to oppose racism and racist systems and structures. So then what does a school district look like? A school district that takes intentional action to dismantle racist behaviors, systems, policies, and practices. So again, just another way of helping you understand the relationship between cultural intelligence and reducing these inequities and helping to create an anti-racist school community. So without CQ, I highlight what we see happening all the time. Dr. Quinn talked about the work that we've done with school districts and educational institutions and corporations. And we've seen time and time again, particularly in education, that efforts oftentimes around diversity and equity focus on the awareness. So we spend a lot of time educating people a little bit, but they still lack the skills. So again, I can be educated all day long, but if I don't have the skills, then I'm going to be very limited. And then it allows us to address things at the systems level, right? Because if we don't bring in cultural intelligence, what we will be vulnerable to are systems and policies that continue to perpetuate inequities and racism. So the solution, right, is this integrated approach to customized training. We're rolling out a massive training program, but it is very customized, it is very focused, and it has very clear achievable goals. But it's also integrated with a much larger strategy around tackling these issues around race and racism. The intervention strategies that we are putting in place are very high impact. We are able to measure the work. That is huge. So we're not just doing a bunch of what I call activity-based work, but we are doing results-oriented work. We're able to measure the work and we're able to build in accountability. And when we do these things, the outcomes are amazing, right? We're developing skills, we're creating culturally intelligent classrooms, we are reducing inequities amongst marginalized students, and we're creating higher and more effective engagement. And ultimately, we're able to create more culturally intelligent and anti-racist policies and practices. So multiple benefits in terms of the relationship between CQ and addressing racial inequities and creating an anti-racist school community. Last thing I want to say before I pass this on to our presenters tonight, the chiefs, is the fact that, again, we're going to measure the work. This is a huge piece, and you can see that there's several data points that we will be collecting throughout the process over the next year and a half to measure whether or not we are seeing the improvement that we are claiming that can happen. So we're looking at individual capabilities, CQ scores of all of teachers and staff and leadership, those high impact intervention strategies that I mentioned a moment ago. Again, looking at it at the individual level through CQ and unconscious bias training. Every person will be developing a plan of action for improving their CQ. We will be providing the community with customized resources and tools. And then we've already formed a community of practice, which makes up of over 100 individuals within the district who have been certified in cultural intelligence and who have been charged with facilitating the trainings. I am meeting with them on a monthly basis to make sure that things are staying on track, that they have what they need from us, and that the training experience for everyone that goes through them is a very positive one. And then lastly, multiple data points. So people will be taking the CQ assessment as a pre and post, and then we'll have a wide range of data that we can look at where we can aggregate that data as well as disaggregate it and use it to continue to inform efforts around creating an anti-racist school community. So, and then lastly, several ways that we'll track that progress through a very sophisticated dashboard that we have created specifically for the district. So really exciting work that we're doing. The one other thing that I wanted to very briefly mention is that when I mentioned that there are going to be resources and tools, you can see here on the screen just a sample of what we're calling a CQ cheat sheet that we have developed for the different populations. So teachers, staff will have a version, administrators will have, leadership will have a version, students will have a version, and families will have a version on very practical strategies for how they can contribute to helping to create an anti-racist school community. So with that, I am going to now, I have the privilege of introducing our chiefs this evening. First up will be Chief of Staff, Dr. Pamela Lear, and she will be talking about how her area will be focusing on supporting this work to create an anti-racist school community. Dr. Lear.
Thank you. And I guess first I'd like to start with just thanking you, Dr. Upton, just for your willingness to moderate this very important discussion about creating an anti-racist school community. And, you know, the question that you asked was, what's the work that my particular scope, my division is working on? And I guess when I think about this work, I start at just a national level, and just with the national health crisis and the social justice movement, we've also had work at the local level around racial equity. And that work has really highlighted and amplified systemic practices within our own organization that we see now through analysis of data has created some significant inequities, and specifically for our African American students and our English learners. So now it's really more critical than ever that we think deeply about how we're maximizing, how we're using resources, and then even more importantly, how we're equitably allocating those resources. And so, as we know, these disparities didn't happen overnight. There have been decades of under-resourced areas and specific equity groups. So the solution will take some time to resolve, but our district has already begun to take those intentional measures to dismantle racist behaviors and practices and systems within our organization. And you highlighted in your opening statement, as did Dr. Quinn and President Henry, that we're starting at the highest level, and that's with the board. And the board did take those bold and courageous actions to address institutional racism within our system by approving a policy and a resolution. And I think it's just, when I say bold and courageous, I'm underlining that because we're in that policy, we're publicly stating that we must right those wrongs of historical oppression. So most recently in June, the board also approved the Black Lives Matter resolution declaring that our Black students and our Black families in Dallas do matter. So to ensure that I'm part of the solution and my scope, my area or division is leading the district, I see this as making foundational investments in 3 ways. And the first is around developing a racial equity mindset in the whole organization. And we're doing this through the implementation of ongoing district-wide professional development. And, this is part of that professional development, and it's focused on anti-racism, it's focused on cultural intelligence and implicit bias. I think it's extremely important that we, as a district, be extremely transparent and sharing data points that reflect inequitable practices that surface. I think the second investment that we're making is having meaningfully engaging conversations, discussions with our stakeholders. We have to do a better job in giving everyone voice. We need to prepare opportunities to engage in discussions around decisions that are being made that impact the lives of our students and our families. And then that third investment that is a focus in my division is the measuring, monitoring, and reporting out on progress. We seldomly get anything accomplished if we don't have a way to measure and a process of monitoring. So it's critical that we find viable and effective ways and approaches in order to measure and monitor our progress on our established outcomes. And then, of course, reporting on that process or that progress and doing it consistently, not just once a year, but on an ongoing basis. So I guess, in closing on this particular question, I think as a system, it's not enough to just open the gates of opportunity. All of our students have to have the ability to actually walk through those gates of opportunity. And I believe that the actions that the executive team is discussing today is a great starting point towards substantive change in creating a true anti-racist district community, and then also supporting our students in actually walking through those gates of opportunity and access.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lear. That was fantastic. And I want to go now to the next chief, the Chief of School Leadership, Jolie Healy, and ask a similar question. How will your area support and contribute to creating an anti-racist school community?
Good evening, and thank you. We have the privilege in school leadership of guiding and supporting schools to achieve our mission and vision of equity and excellence for all students. And this year, we are focused on 2 key strategies. One is building a culture of instructional excellence, and that encompasses so many things, from having high expectations and positive relationships with our learners to using an aligned and rigorous curriculum with the best teaching strategies, as well as facilitating authentic engagement with formative feedback. And so that culture of instructional excellence is critical, but we have to pair that, and we are excited to pair that with monitoring for outcomes. So as Dr. Lear just talked about in school leadership, we will be measuring and monitoring and sharing progress along the way, not just once or twice a year, but every 6 weeks, really digging deep into what our students know, what supports they need, and how we can promote learning. And we have seen that this is critical, that these 2 go together. And as a quick example, we've had a school that has a natural 3-way split of ethnicity, and they had some awards, blue ribbon and other awards, but they still had disparities among the performance of student groups. And so they decided they're going to build the foundation, And no matter what, we're going to ensure all first graders are reading on or above grade level by the end of the year. And so to do that, they did the first strategy of instructional excellence. And it looked and it sounded beautiful. They had guided reading and writer's workshop, everything you would want to see. But they didn't want to wait till the end to see if they had made progress. So every 6 weeks, they talked about student progress and how students were reading. And in the very beginning, when they talked about white students, everyone knew fluency rates, comprehension skills, decoding needs. When they talked about Hispanic students, much the same, and sometimes they would talk about language acquisition. But when they talked about African American students, they would frequently get off track and talk about something that happened at the playground or an interaction that they had. And it had to be called out. And it was a flashing light of what bias can do and how it can create systems that limit the opportunities of all of our students, and that together we have to ensure that every single child gets access to the highest quality instruction. And luckily and wonderfully, they came together and proved that all students can learn at high levels with the right time and investment. And the exciting thing right now for us in Dallas ISD is we are poised to create a whole system that's equitable. We have leaders and teachers all over the district engaging in unconscious bias training and cultural intelligence to learn about themselves and invest in an equity mindset. This will provide a foundation and a springboard for everything else. So for our other two strategies of instructional excellence and monitoring and measuring all along the way, all of those together, we're excited about the new year.
Thank you so much. Excellent. And we're going to move right on to the Chief of Communications, Libby Daniels.
Hello, everyone. It is exciting to be here and to be part of this conversation. This is really exciting to me because I missed being part of the birth of the civil rights movement. So to be in the midst of this new movement that is blossoming and taking forth in front of my very eyes is truly, truly exciting. So I'm excited to be part of this. One of the things as a communicator that we do really is to tell the stories about the initiatives that are happening within the district. And so that is our real purpose here, is to shine a light on this initiative and to elevate all the various things that are happening across the district, because there are so many pieces to this. Every department has a piece that they are promoting and pushing forward. And so we are just excited to be able to showcase those wonderful stories that are happening. I have the pleasure of working with an incredible communications team. And this is what they do. This is where they shine in telling the stories that are there. And so we are all excited at being able to elevate, again, these stories. One of the things that we want to do with this initiative is really kind of connect the dots, because there's so much going on. As you heard, Jolie has so much happening in school leadership, and you'll hear from the others who also have really unique and very meaningful work around this initiative. So we want to make sure that we're connecting the dots so that it doesn't seem as if there are just all these one-offs that are just happening across the district, but that this is a concerted effort that has true meaning and real meaningful work that's taking place on a regular basis. It is something that we have all embraced, and we are moving forward with great intentionality to create some meaningful change. So we're excited to be able to elevate that and do that. One of the ways that we're doing that is by creating a very robust district-wide comm plan that will help us to kind of position and tell those stories and put that in front of and keep it in front of our stakeholders so that they have the awareness that this initiative is going on and moving forward, but they see that it is being treated with the importance that we are giving it. So we're excited to be able to do that and again, connect the dots around a plan. A part of the plan is, and I'm going to ask Mari Carmen if you can make sure that my screen is being shared right now. But part of the plan is to make sure that we have we're going to relaunch rather, our Voices page, which we put together a while back that we want to really turn into a more robust effort where people can come and can see all the stories that the district has to offer. The idea is to delve down into all the things that Jolie's talking about, what's going on there, and find those stories that impact and connect and tell the story. We know as communicators that if you want someone to remember your message, to hear your message, you really need to tell them a story. So we are about finding those stories that make impact, that not only tell us, yeah, this is what's going on, A, B, and C is happening, but where is the impact? Give me the face of the people that this touches and impacts. So we're excited to be able to do that through this website. It launches live tomorrow. So please get a chance to visit /voices, dallasisd.org/voices. And we will certainly let everyone know that it's there, and will be a robust place where fresh stories will be populated regularly, where we can hear about what's going on in the district. One of the things that I want to emphasize is images matter. It's a small thing, but they matter so much. And to be able to see the young man in the middle who stands there in this position of pride, you see that there are great things ahead for him. And to be a young African-American boy or a young African-American girl looking to see that path to success, that is monumental. Just to have that as an image in your mind that you see. The same thing for our ELL students who are in a place and trying to figure out what their path to success is, to be able to see a teacher who was in their position not too long ago, and they've made their path. So just to show them that there is a path to success for them is huge. It does great things that we can't even quantify. We can't really measure the impact that it makes. So that is what we are focusing on, is telling those stories that are out there. We've got 1 million of them. And so we are excited and thrilled to get a chance to delve in and find those because we know that is where our community will engage with us. They will remember our stories and they'll pass it on. So we're excited about the work that's ahead of us.
Thank you so much, Chief Daniels. And there is actually, I'm sure you're aware of this, but there's extensive research that talks about the value of storytelling. And there's a direct relationship between storytelling and changing the mindset and behaviors of others. So very powerful. Thank you so much. We're going to now transition to Chief of Strategic Initiatives, Dr. Brian Lusk.
Thank you, Dr. Upton, and good evening. The Strategic Initiatives Division is committed to supporting an anti-racist school community and providing equity for our Black and English learner students. In particular, as we think about the school application process and school choice, and by the way, that's just right around the corner, it's critical that we make sure we remove any barriers of bias that may be in the way. And so that's a priority for us, and we'll continue to focus on that. And so with that, I would like to share a few examples with you today that we are doing to make sure that we do remove those barriers I just referenced. So first, I'll start with our transformation school policy. Dallas ISD has a policy that guides the selection process, if you will, for our transformation schools. And currently, we have 12 transformation schools in Dallas ISD, and we'll launch a few more next school year. But specifically, FDB regulation outlines our 50-50 model. That is our blind lottery process that we use that outlines the socioeconomic tiers for the selection process for these schools. So the 50-50 model basically is this: 50% of our students in these schools are economically disadvantaged, and 50% of our students are non-economically disadvantaged. And within the economically disadvantaged student population, there are also census block tiers that are established so that seats are dedicated for students within those tiers. And so we're really excited that we can provide this opportunity for our students, and we can ensure the equity that our students want and deserve. And quickly, I'll move to the second. The second is our P-TECH and early college programs. Our P-TECH and early college programs now have gone to scale. We have 28 P-TECH and early college programs across Dallas ISD, and we are really excited about the success and the work that our teachers and students are doing. In this program, just like transformation schools, students apply. However, there is no entrance criteria. Essentially, students apply, show their interest, they engage in an interview with a school-based team, and then the selection and the lottery process begins from there. And I think if you look at our data and our demographic data for our P-TECH and early college programs, you'll notice that it is commensurate and aligns well with district level data. So we know that this is working, and most important, our students are getting a lot of credentials along the way to set themselves up for great careers and college opportunities. And then finally, I'll share quickly just our magnet opportunities. Now, we do know magnets come with an entrance criteria, but we are very intentional about making sure that we can provide the opportunities and supports that are necessary for students and communities and feeder patterns that are underrepresented. In particular, we are doing a few things in conjunction with the Racial Equity Office, with school leadership, and our office. We are providing workshops within the communities for our families starting this month and going all the way through January to make sure our families have a full understanding and support as they apply for the magnet schools of their choice. In addition, not only are we providing supports along the way, but probably more important, what we're doing is providing a mentor for every student who applies within these communities that are underrepresented. They will receive a mentor to help them understand and be prepared for the school-based assessment process for which they will engage. And we know and we know that that'll make a difference, and we know that it's going to get our students across that finish line to get into schools of their choice. So we're really excited about the work we're doing, but we also know that with that, we have to be intentional about ensuring that we help remove biases that may be in place within these processes. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Lusk. And now we're going to transition to the Chief Technology Officer, Jack Kalanick.
Oh, thank you. And hi, good evening, everybody. So I just wanted to start by saying that we are committed to providing equitable access to technology resources for all of our students. And I feel that that work has never been more important. We've learned over the last 7 months just how important having access to technology is. So there's really 3 ways I'd like to just highlight quickly for the group that we're doing that we're going about that right now. Number 1 is in our operation connectivity. We've connected approximately 33,000 families over the last 6 months with home internet access. That's more families than the entire population of University Park. But let me get specific for a minute. Let's take Pleasant Grove for an example, right? Pleasant Grove, zip code 75217, is a Dallas ISD neighborhood that had the highest percentage of families with children without home internet access before the pandemic, right? So they were coming in around 43% of families with children without internet access before the pandemic. Through our efforts over the last several months, we've been able to decrease that by about 20%. And we're still going, right? We're just getting started on operation connectivity. So we've just ordered another 10,000 mobile hotspots because the demand continues for home internet access for our students. In addition to that, we're pivoting now towards wired subscriptions for our families so they can have a better, more robust internet performance. And we're also looking to provide stability of those services for multiple years to come. And then lastly, on connectivity, we'll be bringing forward a recommendation to the board in the next several weeks to construct a private and demonstrate a private wireless network to reach those areas of our district that either are not currently built with infrastructure or the commercial providers just aren't reaching for whatever reason. So that's connectivity. The second area I'd like to just talk about our work is really around computers. So we have just now gotten to the point, we've been working on this for several years, where every Dallas ISD student at every grade level has access to a district computer, right? That's a first for us. And it's, sorry that it took us as long as it did to get here, but we're finally at that point that we've started to level the playing field a little bit for these students. So we have as many computers as we have students. There's no shortage of supply in our district. And we're providing state-of-the-art brand new technology equipment for all of our kids, preloaded with the appropriate learning software, again, so that everyone has access to those technology resources. And the third area that I'd touch on real quick is data. So we've been developing you talked about data, Dr. Upton. We've been developing our own dashboard to help measure and monitor student engagement during this period of online learning. So if a student logs into Google Classroom or our new Schoology learning management system, we'll see that, right? If they're spending their time on Frog Street or Flocabulary or Quaver Music, whatever that application may be, we'll see that too. And if they logged in last week but they didn't show up this week, we'll see that, right? And so we can drive an alert out to the teacher, out to the counselor, out to the parent to set off some sort of action to say, hey, what happened with the student? How can we reach out and bring them back in so that they can continue to participate with us? And since we have all that data at the student level, of course, we can aggregate it up. We can look at specific schools. We can look at specific ethnicities. We can look at specific grade levels and really try to analyze those trends as they're happening in real time. And so we don't necessarily have to wait until the periodic assessment to know where these kids are at, because if they're not engaging, of course, they're not learning at the rate we want them to. So those investments, I think, in data products will help us, right, to become better about identifying and supporting those students that need extra support.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And that's really exciting that every single student now has a computer and state-of-the-art technology. That is a wonderful accomplishment. We're going to transition now to Chief Academic Officer Shannon Trejo.
Thank you so much, Dr. Upton. I too would like to echo the words of my colleagues in saying how excited I am about the upcoming year and this opportunity to really change this community, change our mindset, and look forward to providing the opportunities that our students deserve in Dallas ISD. I'd like to open by saying that really a lot of the projects that I'll be helping to support are in conjunction with all of the chiefs on this presentation. So we can't do it alone, and we are doing it together. And it's going to take all of us as a community to make all of these be successful as we move forward. Some three big areas that we are focusing on in teaching and learning have to do with teacher professional growth and instruction. So professional learning, and not just for teachers, for our whole system in general. We're working very closely with Dr. Upton to provide meaningful professional learning for all staff. That includes cafeteria workers, bus drivers, our chiefs, our campus principals, every staff member in the district to have an opportunity to participate in cultural intelligence training, unconscious bias and anti-racism training under the direction of Dr. Upton and the Center for Cultural Intelligence. Not only are we working to support that systemic format, we're making it available in a way that teachers and staff can take bite-sized approaches to this content. They can learn a little, apply a little, learn a little, apply a little. It's not a one-time shot. It is intentionally laid out in a way over the course of this year that all of our staff will have that opportunity to learn and grow and apply what they're learning in a meaningful way, so that students and parents and community members will see and feel the change of mindset that's going to happen and is happening now in the district. In addition to our foundational training that we're providing, we're also creating opportunities to support teachers with culturally responsive pedagogy and practices. So what does that mean? Let me give you an idea. Once we work on the growth mindset and our instructional professional growth at the foundational level, we want to look at how are teachers going to utilize these skills in the classroom. So one example of that is a series that's going to be coming out soon called I Matter, We Matter, Words Matter. And we're going to be working very closely with our English language arts teachers. There's about 3,000 of them in the district to work on read alouds, where we've selected texts by African-American authors with African-American students. And we're going to help teachers understand how to present those read alouds in a way that create a safe space for students to talk about identity, to talk about family, to talk about their experiences, and feel good about the conversations that are happening in a way that creates self-advocacy. In addition, we can't just train without giving people resources. So our team is working very hard in conjunction with school leadership to select culturally relevant and responsive materials, texts, resources, all things that align with student experiences that are going to be positive and productive. This is done through a lens of mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Mirrors for us is to sit back and say, do these curriculum materials represent or mirror the diverse student populations in our classrooms? Can our students see themselves in their learning opportunities? In the windows, we want to look for, are we presenting opportunities to learn about a diverse set of cultures? Are students able to see others as well as see themselves in the classroom in a positive way? And then sliding glass doors is, how do we open up that door for students to step out, recognize injustice, self-advocate, and right some wrongs in a positive and productive way? So those lenses are helping us make those intentional selections for curriculum. We're taking those resources and also creating courses and activities that support a deeper understanding of a powerful history, culture, and political lens of our diverse populations to support civic responsibility and self-advocacy. Courses like our ethnic studies programs that are so powerful for African American studies and Mexican American studies that were recently approved by our State Board of Education are in play now, and we are expanding those opportunities to our students. In addition, we are looking at embedding content in our overall social studies TEKS to highlight key ideas that will represent our diverse population in a way that everyone can learn about the rich history that we need to hear about. The last portion is for actual student access. Intentional focus on increasing access for students into pre-AP and AP, bridging courses to support students when intervention is needed. And there is no furlough process. We don't want to just step out if things aren't working out. We want to have things in place to help our students be successful no matter what. And that's from teaching and learning.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you so much, Shannon. That was great. And now we're going to transition to Chief of Human Capital Management, Dr. Cynthia Wilson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Upton. It's my pleasure to join everyone this evening to discuss a very important topic to each of us. One of the things that I think is important is that we take past learnings that we've all had as leaders and apply them to our own CQ and improving that. A book that was very popular several years ago was one that asked leaders to take one word and apply that to your work across the entire year and everything that you did. And so for HCM, Human Capital Management, we're applying the word intentional. We want to work with intentionality in everything that we do. And that is also something that was addressed earlier, was to take intentional action. So that's our focus this year, and that's what we plan to do in a very conscientious and applicable way to making changes, not only in hiring teachers, but also in our efforts to hire central office staff who also are guided by their cultural intelligence. And so the things that we're focused on primarily this year and that we have committed to improving in the areas of having an intentional focus on placing teachers in classrooms with our Black students that are proficient 1 or higher. It's some of the data that we've seen over and over again across our district, but we haven't exactly focused on it to make sure that we have targeted numbers that we want to reach for every classroom and every campus. Our high priority campuses are those campuses with a larger population of Black students, and so those are the campuses that we'll be focused on this year and moving forward. Also, we're going to change the way we recruit teachers to our campuses. We hire about 1,000 to 1,200 teachers annually, which seems like a lot, and you can definitely get lost in just checking off the numbers, like we got to fill these spots. But we're engaging with a new way of identifying teachers and looking at behaviors and characteristics, things like, are they reflective? Are they interactive? Are they passionate? Are they questioning? Are they progressive? And so these are some of the things that we've identified as characteristics and traits within individuals that eventually lead to teachers who can be more adaptive in the classroom and change their thinking, change their behavior so that they are able to provide all students with what they need to be successful, which is our eventual outcome. We also want to continue to review the data so that we relate to teachers in a way that helps them to be successful in the campuses that we need them the most, where we need them the most. We feel that in the past, we haven't necessarily provided principals with the background data that they needed to understand the type of teacher that they should be seeking. There's one thing to look at a resume and also to look even at a grade point average, but those are not things that are specifically going to tell us what we need to know about people coming from either a different career or coming into teaching as a young, 22-year-old. What did I know when I was 22 moving into a classroom? Gosh, I don't know how to relate to these kids. And so we want to be able to tap into the things that we know about teachers who are successful with Black students and make sure that we are using those measures to match teachers to students, and the students will be the beneficiaries of our efforts. This year, we began a program, an initiative we have 13 African-American males who left another career and moved to our alternative certification program. They're residents, so they will teach with a highly effective teacher in a classroom for a semester. In our second semester, those individuals will have their own classrooms because we often have vacancies, and those who are ready will go, and those who need a little bit more attention, we have the option of continuing to have them work with a master teacher. We're excited about this program. We had over 700 applicants. So now we're working to ensure that we can bring additional candidates in to work with our kids, because there's certainly a desire out there. What we found in our data is we have more African-American males teaching at the secondary level. We're going to dig more deeply into why, but we did not have a high percentage of African-American males teaching at the elementary level. So we really need those males in our elementary schools because they will be able to identify with our young male students and help and encourage them to become whatever they want to become. So that's one of the initiatives. That's one of the action steps that we're very proud of this year. We're going to build on that. And we're very excited about that.
Finally,
you so much. Oh, thank you. One last thing.
Okay.
Finally, it's very important for every one of us to remain open-minded about what we've done in the past and to reflect on what we did and did it work and how we can become better. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. And certainly last but not least, Chief Business Officer Dwayne Thompson.
Well, good evening. As we look at the budget, it involves all the pillars from Racial Equity Office. And so as you've heard tonight from the financial aspect, there are resource implications from all the various areas. So we are constantly reviewing our resource allocations to ensure we're driving towards equity. One of the new things that we have available to us now with House Bill 3 was that we now get a new census block tier information regarding the poverty levels of the various census and comparison across our entire district. So we're looking at possibilities of utilizing that information for additional allocations since we now have that information available to us. Another area that I cover is construction, and if we're fortunate enough to have the opportunity for the 2020 bond, then we would also utilize the Facility and Community Resource Index to develop our implementation plan of the order of projects. The other thing we are working on right now is to develop a standard classroom setup so that we can ensure that all campus has the same furniture and fixture across the district. But regardless of the 2020 plan, things that are going on right now is to make sure that our MWBE goals are met. We have two different ways of implementing construction, and one of those has a lot of discussion is CMAR. And so I need to make sure, which is construction manager at risk. So I need to make sure that those 3 projects meet the MWBE goals that they have established with their proposals. And then officially today, we released our 2015 dashboard so the community can log on to our website and see how the resources were spent or are going to be spent and the timeframes that are on that. And if we're fortunate again, that we'll do the same thing for 2020. But that will allow the community to be able to see how the resources are being utilized and where, and have factual information regarding that. And then finally, as non-construction is just in procurement. We still have the MWE goals that we're trying to meet. And so we're trying to establish end user training to make sure they understand where those certified vendors are and that they're available to them. But also going to expand on that is to meet with our buyers with MWBE. So as we're getting to go out for proposals, that they can be able to get more solicitation from a variety of vendors. So as you can see, all of our areas cross all the pillars and everything is utilizing resources, but our intentionality is to meet our goals and to assist our students.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Thompson. I am going to now pass it back over to Dr. Quinn to make a few comments, and then I will make some final comments and wrap up our time.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Upton, and a special thanks to our panelists of chiefs and everyone who attended tonight. We look forward to future meetings and want to thank our trustees and want to thank Dr. Hinojosa, our award-winning superintendent, for leading the charge and providing the platform for our racial equity-focused work in Dallas ISD. Last but not least, certainly, again, I want to thank those of you who took time out of your schedules to witness this great work that we're doing in Dallas. And I'd like to announce a few more things that are coming up. Within a few months, we're going to host another webinar, but this time the panelists will be community stakeholders who are well acquainted with and deeply rooted in racial equity work. So stay tuned for that. It should be happening prior to the winter break. Additionally, in spring of 2021, we will host several town halls so that our community at large can participate in these conversations. So I've had a few of you to ask me, what about the community? When are we going to have an opportunity to talk? So we hadn't forgotten about you. We started with central office, and then we're going to go with community stakeholders who are heavily rooted in the work, and then we're going to open it up to the community at large. And then finally, guys, we'd like for you to please visit our website, Racial Equity website, to learn more about what you can do personally to affect change and create an anti-racist society within your very own circle of influence. And you will also see definitions of key terms and a list of recommended readings and resources. And with that, Dr. Upton, I'm going to turn it back over to you because I know that we are like 2 minutes out. So
we are. But this was so rich, and I just want to thank the panelists. I'm just sitting here feeling a bit overwhelmed myself. There was so much phenomenal information, and probably to some of you that are listening, you may have even felt a bit overwhelmed because it was so much information, but that's a good thing. But what I want you to understand, for those of you that are listening, is that if you didn't hear anything else, there were some common themes that are critical and that I know from my 25 years of working in this space are best practices. But everything that you heard tonight was clearly on a trajectory to demonstrate that the work that's being done is comprehensive, it is collaborative, so it's not this one-off. Everybody's sort of doing their own thing. You heard several departments talk about how they are working in collaboration, and one effort has a direct impact on another effort. So the fact that it's comprehensive, the fact that it's collaborative, those are critical things. The work is data-driven, the work is being measured, right? All of those make the recipe for real sustainable impact. And so again, if you didn't hear anything else, hopefully you heard those themes that are critical and that we know based on the work that we've done, extensive work that we've done over the many years with educational institutions like a Dallas ISD. Those are the things that we know make a real difference. So again, thank you all for joining us this evening. Until next time, we will see you then. Thank you.